Hello and welcome back to the channel once again. Today we are going to take a look at my old Broadway Limited Blueline USRA Mikado from Union Pacific. These were very interesting in that they were DC with sound and DCC ready. That you could piggyback a DCC decoder on top of the sound chip inside to give you the digital control of the sound. This was back in 2007, I believe, is when I purchased this. But it is an old model, and it was really my first quality model, which is funny because Blueline was supposed to be the value brand, I guess. And they came with sound, and honestly, this is the model that got me hooked on having sound in my models, and it is the reason why I spent so much money to put sound in them, and I blame this model for it. Now before I take it out of the package and show you all the details and run it and let you listen to it, this is what it originally looked like. This is a stock Broadway Limited photo of this model, and a few years ago I decided that I wanted to upgrade the sound, and ultimately that snowballed into this project of not just changing out the electronics, but making the model look completely different from what it comes out of the box as. Really, this was my first foray into looking at photos of a prototype and then matching my model to that prototype. So I searched for photos of 2480 and started making notes on what was different from the model and what I would have to change. And while I decided to go ahead and make these changes, I was ripping out the original Blueline electronics and installing a new separate decoder and adding all these little details on top of it. And I kind of want to show you what I've done and what this thing looks like on the inside. And we'll run it a little bit and see how it sounds with its TCS Wow Sound decoder. So the first thing that was necessary was to take out the original Blueline board that controlled the electronics and the locomotive itself on DC. If you wanted to activate any of the extra sounds, the blow the whistle and the bell, you needed a separate controller that Broadway Limited sold. I actually had this for a little while before selling it because I don't need it anymore. I did keep the original speakers and wiring harness from the model, and because Broadway Limited doesn't color coat their wires, it was a little bit of a guessing game trying to figure out what was what, but ultimately it was not too hard to trace the wires and figure out the connections. After testing the TCS Wow Sound decoder in the model and understanding that it works correctly, I added a current keeper, a TCS Keep Alive, and I noticed when I took the shell off of this locomotive originally that there are holes in the firebox door, which is perfect if you want to do a firebox flickering effect. So I had a 3mm red LED. It's probably not a good fit in that model. I should probably swap it out for an orange surface mount LED. Something that's a better fit. But for now, it's fine. I will eventually go back in there and redo that LED setup. I sanded off some molded on details, but I kept most of it intact. The smokestack is a piece of styrene rod that is cut to length, was put into a drill bit, and then as I rotated it in the drill bit, it was tapered with some sandpaper to give it an even taper. That is supposed to represent the Sweeney stack, the wide mouth smokestacks that a lot of late Union Pacific steam had. Apparently there's a company that did a detail part for that at some point, but I couldn't find anything, so I just made it at home. There's a lot of extra little detail pipework that was added. The sand dome had molded on grab irons. I went ahead and made those out of brass. Whistle originally laid flat. I stood it up and added a whistle shield and a pull cord for the whistle. It's a detail I really like. I added some handrails wherever it was necessary, including the cab, and the footboards were modified to look more like the prototype with those wide footboards that were present on the prototype. I used a piece of brass strip to create the brackets and then some styrene cut to length and painted to make those footboards. Lastly, the most significant change in terms of the appearance of the locomotive is this raised footboard on the driver's side. This was apparently done to create room for a train control box, I believe, in probably the 20s, and was subsequently removed, but they kept that raised footboard, and when you look at the photos of the prototype, it still had that up until the end of its life. That is the most significant detail change that I can really picture comparing it to the original model. The tender had a number of detail changes as well. The water hatch was raised, and the sides of the bunker were also raised, so I raised those as well with some sheet styrene, and I also added real coal into the bunker because it just looks way better. I also added very small safety chains on all four corners of the trucks. These would have been used to keep the trucks in line if it were to derail, so it wouldn't rip up the track. And you can also see a toolbox that was added to the end of the tender as well. And that's pretty much most of the detail that's done on this model. Yeah, let's take a look at it running. Well, that's gonna do it for today, folks. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video on the first model that I ever really delve deep into changing its appearance, and this was really the first one that I've ever swapped the electronics over into something new and something different, and it was very scary to take a model that you buy when you're young and spent all your money on and change everything about it, but honestly I'm very happy with the results. And if it inspires you to do something similar with a model you've been considering changing up or swapping up the electronics or anything like that, all I can say is make sure you document everything. Other than that, go for it. It is a lot of fun, it's very rewarding. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing or hitting that like button if you liked it, and hopefully I'll have more videos coming up very soon. Thank you so much for watching.